Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Janelle Riley. I'm an editor at Variety. I'm so thrilled to welcome you here for this Q&A with the Crowded Room. I'd like to welcome the talented actor who not only stars in this series, but serves as an executive producer. Please welcome Tom Holland.
Hi, guys. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you for being here.
No, my pleasure. Don't thank me. I've had nothing to do for 100 days, so it feels good to be back.
Thank you so much for being here, and congratulations on a fantastic performance. It's interesting because you're still so young, but you've been acting for most of your life.
Yeah.
How did you even get into it? Were you like doing school plays as a kid, or?
Interestingly, actually, I auditioned for every part in my school play, male and female, and didn't get a single one. Yeah, we did Romeo and Juliet. I was at an all-boys school. I auditioned for every single part, and I wasn't in it.
Wow.
But I just used to love dancing. It was something I always was really passionate about. My mom would take me to this hip-hop class every Sunday. It was called Nifty Feet, and that's not funny.
No, it's cool.
It's a cool
No, I
time,
loved
dude.
it. Nifty Feet. We used to go. It was a great time for us to be creative. You know, at the end of the class, which was my favorite part of the class, was the time for you to kind of do your own choreo, and they would give you 8 8s, and you would figure out your own thing. And the headmaster, the lady that ran that school, I'm so English, the headmistress, she knew the lady that was casting Billy Elliot on the West End. So she said, you should go along for an audition. You look like him, you're the right age, and you really love dancing. So I started auditioning for that. Really, for myself and my parents, it was just kind of an exciting thing to do. To go along to an audition in central London, to learn to dance, to kind of see how far along the other kids were. Most of the kids that were in the auditions were ballet dancers and gymnasts and tap dancers, and I was like, giving it one of these. But I got the part. I auditioned for nearly 2 years.
Wow.
I started auditioning when I was 9. I didn't get on stage until I had just turned 12. And then I did the show, and my life changed.
Your first audition was for Billy Elliot on the West End?
No, my first audition was for Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, true, yes.
But I didn't get it.
So this all-boys school, they had men playing the women's roles too?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my friend Sam played Juliet. He was beautiful. But yeah, no, it was. I've always loved performing.
Yeah.
My dad's a stand-up comedian, and I really admire him. You know, it's a really tough business.
God.
It's it's really scary. So I've always, my dad's got a real brass neck. He's tough, and he's able to deal with good shows and bad shows. So I've always really admired him for that. But I've always really shared his passion for performing and making people laugh and making people cry. So I've always loved it.
I can't imagine anything scarier than stand-up comedy. Just
Yeah, it's
standing up
terrifying.
there. Yeah. Do you go to his shows, or does he tell you not to?
I've gone to a few of his shows. I remember once I was in Brazil doing a Comic-Con. There was like 5,000 people in the audience, and I had a microphone. I was on stage for about an hour, and I thought it was like the greatest comedy show ever, because everyone would just laugh at everything I said. And I remember calling up my dad afterwards. Was like, Dad, I think I'm gonna do comedy. Like I'm really good at it. And I can't repeat what he said, but I'm not doing comedy.
That's good parenting. Well, again, congratulations on The Crowded Room.
Thank you.
You've already done such a wide variety of roles, but I don't think we've ever seen you do someone like Danny Sullivan. Were you looking for a project like this when it came your way, or is it something that like was brought to you and you kind of like can't believe this amazing story?
I think, for all actors, there's that dream role. There's that role that you admire, something that you look up to, something that, really inspired you. And as a young kid, I really attached to the movie Primal Fear. My dad showed it to me. It was the first movie where I felt old enough to kind of understand the twist, and I just remember it blowing my mind. And that was, for me, the kind of, at the age where I started noticing performance. And I remember Ed Norton's performance in that, and just really being like, wow, that was so cool how he was able to play 2 people like that. And I just always said to my agents, like, if anything like that ever comes across your desk, please. I was shooting Spider-Man 3, having the time of my life, making a movie I was really excited about, but really looking forward to a break. I was tired. And my agents called me up and they were like, that script has come across our desk. You should read it. Actually, there wasn't a script, it was a treatment. So I read it. I was a little confused by it. So I ended up meeting Akiva, the writer, and he pitched me the idea. And I fell in love with him. I fell in love with the idea. I was terrified by the challenge, which for me is always a really good thing. I kind of thrive off of that kind of energy. So it was an easy decision, but really that film, Primal Fear, is kind of what made my decision.
And I'm sure you know this, but that was Edward Norton's movie debut.
Yeah, right?
Isn't that incredible?
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I love his performance in that film.
Have you ever met him?
No.
He's funnier than people think.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's
I
good to
think
know.
so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know. People say that about me.
But that doesn't surprise anyone. In general, what attracts you to a role? Is it the script or the people involved or sometimes a combination of all of the above?
It's all of the above. It's very rare that you'll find a script or a project that ticks every box. There's always an element of risk, I think. You know, our industry is very peculiar in the sense that it's very difficult to work with the same people all the time. So sometimes you're kind of at the mercy of new people. I love that. Sometimes I hate that. But that's kind of part of the business. I remember Tom Hanks did a podcast or something years ago that I remember watching, and he said, like, you don't have to like the people you work with. And that's it's been a really valuable piece of information for me, because it's true. Like, sometimes people are just great at their jobs, but you just don't like them.
And that's okay.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
It's tough though.
Yeah.
But yeah. So what was your question?
What draws you to a project? But that's why it's only been like in the last 5 years that I think I realized, like, oh, I don't need everyone to like me, and I don't need to like everyone. Like, that's perfectly fine.
It's liberating.
Yeah, it really is. I became a real jerk thanks to the pandemic. Oh, sorry. You were saying what draws you to a role?
Oh, challenge,
yeah.
something new, something refreshing, people that I admire. Cornell, our other directors, Akiva, working with Apple, I had a great relationship with them after Cherry. So it really did. It was one of those projects that ticked all the boxes. I was terrified of doing TV. I'd never done it before.
Well, you did Wolf Hall.
Yeah, but I was a kid and I didn't really know what I was doing then.
And that's British TV.
Yeah, and yeah, that was a really fun job.
Really?
I was 18 and we were traveling around the UK shooting. We would get the trains to each location. I remember all of us, like all the young kids, trying to sit down, and someone was like, "Did you read the book? Did you read the book?" I was like, "No, I didn't fucking read the book. Did you see how dense that book was?" But yeah, it was a fun time. I really enjoyed that show, but it was different. I was a very, very small part. I had 3 weeks of work, maybe. For this, it was so labor intensive, 10 months. In every episode, a huge part of every episode, typically like carrying the emotional arcs of those episodes, and working in New York is incredible. The city is as much a character in this show as I am, but New York comes with its own set of challenges. It's busy, you can't lock off the streets, the weather changes on a dime, and it's really tough, but it's great, and I loved it.
But in this case, you did read the book, because I know this is sort of loosely inspired by the minds of Billy Milligan.
Milligan.
Gosh. Sorry, my best friend's last name is Mulligan, so I want everything to be Mulligan.
Right.
But there was no script when it came to you. So you were kind of operating on faith that there was this book that many people had tried to adapt. At that point, did you think you were doing a straight up adaptation?
Yeah, that was the idea. The pitch document was a straight up adaptation with some minor tweaks to the timeline. I read the book. I was really, really blown away by the book. It was not something that I would typically read at that time, just because it was a book. Wasn't
It's
really
no
much
Wolf Hall.
into reading. But I read it. I sort of fell in love with the character, I fell in love with the challenge, and Akiva and I started developing what we thought would be our show. We were hitting this wall where Akiva was adamant that we would tell a story that paints mental health in a positive light. A show that represents so many people that are misunderstood, and something that would serve as an education to people about the powers of the human mind, mental health, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And we really felt like it was important to find a way for the audience to sympathize and love Danny. we couldn't find that with Billy. His crimes were too heinous, and there's just no way you can justify that. So we decided to pivot to fiction to try and create this positive light for this character. I'm so glad we did, because it gave us some great creative license to kind of change certain things and tell the story in a different way. I forget whose idea it was. It was probably Akiva's, but it was definitely the right one.
At what point did you discuss the idea of kind of holding off revealing that Danny has these alters? Because for the first few episodes, we don't know that he has several personalities.
That was always the intention, and one of the problems we kept running into with the Billy Milligan story. We really wanted audiences to get to know these personalities as real people. We didn't want Danny to be subject to the same stigma that there is against people suffering with mental health. We wanted people to just meet him as a blank canvas. And as the show progresses, we start layering in clues here and there that there's something not quite right. And then when we give you the reveal, lots of people pick up on it before, but the show is not about the audience finding out. It's about Danny finding out. And it's about accepting your own ailments. It's about the power and the bravery of asking for help. So really, if you figure it out before Danny, it's almost even more beautiful, because you get to see him figure it out. And for me, that was something I was really proud of.
I actually love that, because I don't think it's trying to hide from the audience. No. It's not trying to be a twist. It's just, this is how it unfolds for him.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the actors, you have a wonderful cast, but some of the actors who play his alters, did you collaborate with them on how the characters would, because you're really sort of sharing the role?
Yeah, it was a really interesting experience working with actors who are portraying characters that I am going to have to go back and, for lack of a better word, mimic. And it was really fun. It was like something a drama teacher would set you at school. You know, we would meet at my house, we would, meet at work beforehand, we would discuss the scene. I would always want to hear what they wanted to do. I wanted my characters to be based off of their instincts. I didn't want to direct them, because I just felt like I had enough going on, and that was their characters, and I wanted them to bring them to life. And that was why we cast them. We saw them in their auditions, and what they brought to those tapes was exactly what we were looking for. And I didn't want to step on those natural instincts. So I wanted them to feel free to do their own thing. The only thing I would ever say to them was, can you give me more? So if it's Johnny's quirkiness, just give me a little bit more so I have something to latch onto. Because sometimes it would be too subtle, and we did want the audience to pick up on those changes. But it was a lot of fun working on accents, dialects, different pitches, different ways in people are walking and all that sort of stuff. It was a fun experience. It was tough all the same, but really rewarding.
Did you ever find yourself having to play multiple characters in the same day?
Oh yeah, all the time. Oh. And sometimes the directors would be like, try this one as Johnny. And you're like, but it's written as Mike. I've practiced this as Mike. And they're like, just try it, throw it away. Fuck off.
Yeah. You know these people better than anyone, yeah.
So it was tough. It was really tough. But again, like I said, as an actor, you're always looking for things like that test you and challenge you. And being on set and having, I think it's 6 characters or 7 characters at your disposal is so freeing and exciting and scary at the same time.
And how did you keep track? I'm a big spreadsheet person. I feel like I would have some people write bios for each one, but especially if you're going back and forth in one day, you have to have some cliff notes.
Yeah, so Akiva was obviously a huge ally. He was so over the text that he was, someone I could always go to ask questions. The most important person on set for me was Ben Perkins, my acting coach. I've worked with him since I was a kid, and he'll come and work with me on movies where I really, really feel like I need that support. And he came with me on this job. We worked tirelessly to figure out the different arcs, where characters would plug in and drop out, and we were playing with the idea that some characters wouldn't remember certain things if they weren't in the spot, which was really confusing. So he was the person that was kind of maintaining my arc, which is a little lazy on my part. But what I will say is I just knew that I didn't have that in me. So I brought him on because I knew that it was necessary, and I knew I couldn't do it without him.
It's like a script supervisor, but for characters.
Yeah, he was like my own personal script supervisor, and he was awesome.
How did you find him? Because people often discover their acting coaches early, and sometimes they have bad experiences. And you've been working with him for so long. I'm just sort of curious where he came from.
So Ben is really one of my best friends. He was my chaperone on The Impossible.
No way.
And I had an acting coach who I was having a really, really hard time with. And I was only young, I was only about 14 when we made that movie. And this acting coach and I really weren't gelling. And it was really important for how intense that film was that we got along. And I remember him coming out to Spain to look after me because I was a child. And he'd be like, try this one like that. I was like, oh, okay. That's a good idea. Yeah, I can do that. And then he would help me with my lines and work with me and workshop things for me. And we just became fast friends, and they ended up employing him as my acting coach. I was his first ever client, I guess.
Wow.
And that would have been, I don't know, 12, 13 years ago.
So he had never been a coach before then?
No, he was an actor. And then he became a chaperone, and he was making a living out of being a chaperone. And now he's a full-time acting coach. That's what he does. He typically works with kids. He has a really wonderful way with kids. He's very kind, he's very open, and he's a very safe person. He hasn't really got a bad bone in his body. So kids really warm to him in a way that sometimes, as we'll all know, directors can be quite cold and, shorten it, do it better, give me less. Sometimes as a kid, you're like, oh, but is it not good then?
Yeah.
Whereas Ben is really caring and kind with the way he does stuff. So he's been a great asset for me. I love him to death, and he's had a wonderful career.
I'm actually so impressed that at 14, you had the fortitude to recognize that you weren't gelling with this other coach, because I know people who stay in, it's like a bad relationship.
Yeah.
And I know people who will be like, well, they must know what they're doing, so I'm going to stick it out and listen to them.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest with you, it wasn't me. At the time, coming out of Billy Elliot, we were really drilled to kind of just do as we were told and work really hard. And, we were fit and we were training and we would do the show 3 times a week. And it was very much like, just do your job. I was willing to do that for The Impossible because, what 13-year-old kid is going to walk up to the director and be like, can you get rid of the acting coach, please? Because she's really annoying. It was my mum.
I love your mom.
Yeah. My mum said that Ben was a better suit, and we were really good friends, and she felt really safe with me being at work with Ben. And Ben's lived with me, over the years. We were in New York when we shot this show. We lived together. Sometimes when he comes to London, he'll live with me. So we're best friends, really.
Wow, that's amazing. Another thing about this show is that this is set in the 70s when you weren't even alive.
Right.
And yet, because I will tell you that you're capturing it very authentically.
Thank you.
How much does it help to, lock into a character, to have that hair and makeup and those clothes and those amazing sets to really, really help you find the role?
A lot of the credit there has to go to Rachel Speak, my makeup artist. She's incredibly talented and, really meticulous in her research. We both together dove into what we wanted to try and create. The studio was adamant that I couldn't cut my hair. They basically flat out refused. They said, do not cut your hair. And on day 1 I came to set and they were furious. But it just was necessary. It's like to play a character like this, to lose yourself in so many people, I had to detach myself from the role as much as I could. And they just were really scared of the haircut. So we took the leap of faith for them. We did it upstairs in the dressing room. We cut my hair, came downstairs. They were like, we got to do a camera test and we got to make sure this is okay. And they were really stressed about it. But ultimately, I think it really works for the show.
Well, I think it just says so much about the character in a strange way. And yeah, what was it like to actually live day-to-day life, though, in that haircut?
I was in New York, so it's trendy. But it was rough. I've never done television before. It takes a lot longer. You really have the time to fall into a character. And I would see myself in the mirror and I wouldn't see myself. I wouldn't necessarily see Danny. but I would see someone different. There's a few times I'd get up and go and brush my teeth in the morning to go to work. My hair's all over the place. I'd see myself and be like, Jesus! And it was tough. It was really tough. The day we wrapped, it was like 2 a.m. We wrapped. I went straight upstairs and shaved my head.
Wow.
Yeah.
You knew that this was going to be a giant undertaking, and you knew it was a huge responsibility. How did you prepare mentally and emotionally, but also, physically for this role? And did it end up being even harder than you thought?
I don't think you can really mentally prepare for something like this show. It's talking about subject matters that I've never experienced in my life. I felt a heavy responsibility to tell this story, to tell it authentically, to make sure that the emotions felt real. So I knew it was going to be tough, and I guess that was my preparation. There was a time before we went into the latter part of the show where I actually asked the studio for the first time in my career if I could have a break. I really needed some time to just reset before we went into the end of the show. And for those of you who have seen the show, you'd know why, because it is so demanding, those last few episodes. So I kind of just knew it was going to be tough, and I just kind of buckled up. And I had Ben with me, who was a shoulder to cry on. I had, Rachel, who's one of my best friends, and my brother came with me, and I just built a really strong support system around me. And I just knew it was going to be really tough. I tried to, lose as much weight as I could, but it wasn't something I was focusing on as much as I did on something like Cherry. I just wanted to not look like like Spider-Man. So it was tough. The physical aspects was really interesting. I love dancing. I love performing with physicality. There's lots of parts of this show where there's no dialogue. So everything is physicality. So the big thing for us was trying to find a way, and I think it really comes across best in the earlier episodes when Danny's at school. We really tried to make him feel small.
Mm-hmm.
I was always that really small kid at school. I was quite tenacious, and I liked playing sport, and I would get stuck in. But I could never fight the fact that I was always just the smallest kid in class. And I really wanted that to come across with Danny, so that when I play characters like Yitzhak or Mike or even Jack, you can feel that kind of growth in my posture. So that was something that we really worked towards to get right.
Yeah, he kind of shrinks in on himself even.
Yeah. I remember being like, why the fuck does my back hurt so much? What's happening to me? And it was just from doing this all day, every day.
Speaking of your amazing cast, in addition to Amanda Seyfried, who's so fantastic, and Sasha Lane, I understand that. So Akiva has been very open about how he's used things from his own life for this story and how personal it was. And I've heard that for a lot of people on the set, even people working on the crew, this was a very personal story, or they had, I think probably mental illness and some of the topics here covered have touched everyone's lives to some degree. And something I heard was that your cast was very supportive of you, especially Sasha. She sort of would check in on you.
Yeah, I mean, I found myself sometimes running into creative barriers where I would find it hard to justify the logic that my character was going through. Because I've never been through those things. I don't have that. I'm lucky that I don't have those ailments. I have never experienced the horrors that Danny has experienced. And I was really struggling at times to understand why he was doing what he was doing. Akiva has been through things. There were castmates, there were crew members who have experienced that sort of stuff, and they would help me understand why he behaved a certain way, or why he would say what he would say. I forget the scene that we had, but Sasha did sit me down and explain something to me, which is between us, and I'll keep it that way. But it was so enlightening and wonderful that she felt comfortable enough to share that with me on set of a TV show, that I felt, again, like that responsibility got heavier because I had to, try and help her out. But she was amazing.
And your scenes with Amanda are so fantastic, and this may sound strange, but since you were an executive producer and involved in casting, was there any kind of a chemistry read between the two of you, or do you just, cast a great actor and show up knowing it'll work?
We knew that Amanda was the lady for the job just because of how talented she is, and I've known Amanda really since I was young. I've bumped into her at countless award shows and parties and all that sort of stuff. So we've sort of known each other. I actually have a picture of me meeting her when I was like 14,
No
and I'm like
way.
super excited about it.
What was that, like Mean Girls for her? Or
No,
Impossible
I
for
think
You?
it was the Les Mis.
Oh,
It's me
okay.
in the middle, and then she's on my right, and then Eddie Redmayne is on my left.
Wow.
And I was very, very excited about it.
You could have been Gavroche.
I could have been. What a missed opportunity. But no. So there was no doubt in our mind that she was going to be fantastic.
What do you do as an actor? I think one of the biggest challenges is finding that chemistry. What if it's just not there? I mean, I guess that's where acting comes in.
Yeah, that's what you're getting paid for, isn't it? You know, you got to find it. It's an unfortunate place to find yourself. It's not an impossible problem. There's a solution to every problem on a film set, and sometimes things happen really naturally. The best chemistries I've ever had are with Downey, Zendaya, and Jacob. And sometimes it's like that, and then sometimes, it's like, I'm not going to go into that. Sometimes it just doesn't really work, and you figure it out, and you're a professional. You're there to do a job. You're there to tell a story, and you make it work.
And then everyone talks about how great the chemistry was.
Exactly.
You're like, okay. What did end up being the most challenging part? I feel like most people have probably seen the whole series at this point, or maybe not. Has everyone seen the whole thing?
No, don't
No.
spoil.
Okay, so
Don't spoil it.
in the episodes 7 and 8, what was your most challenging part?
Episodes 7 and 8.
Or there's those days you look at the call sheet and you know it's going to be a rough day.
That was pretty much every day
Yes.
on this job. There's a scene in the last episode. I won't spoil it. I can tell you that when I read the script, I was terrified of that one scene. I was constantly asking for reassurance from Ben and from Akiva whether or not we could actually make that work. More from a logistical standpoint. It's when Danny takes the stand, and it is so layered in so many different ways that I was so excited about the challenge, but I was so terrified. And I don't know if you guys know who Stormzy is,
Oh, I love Stormzy.
but he's an English.
He name
rapper.
checked you. Oh, sorry.
He's a good friend of mine. He name checked me in a song, and I was so focused for this one scene. It was so difficult that it required so much technicality and looking at the right place at the right time and changing my accents here and there and everywhere, that I was just blasting his song in my ears in between takes. I was just really, really dialed in, really, really focused. Ben was like texting me direction on my phone, so I'd look at my phone like, okay, right, okay, I can do that. Listening to the music, and that for me is my proudest piece of work. I don't think I'll ever find anything that will top that. I'm so grateful to Akiva and to Mona, our director, to give me the opportunity to do what I wanted to do, and I'm really, really proud of it.
Do you often use music to help set a mood or get you into a character?
Yeah, sometimes I do. If I'm struggling, I do. If I'm doing a crying scene and I'm struggling to find the emotion, I'll use it to just kind of level me and just settle my emotions, so I can, because I have really bad ADHD, and I get distracted really, really easily, and a film set's a very busy place.
Yeah.
So I just got distracted now.
The lights are bright.
Yeah, I was like, wow, look at that. Playing with my
colourful.
ring, like, oh god, it's hot in here all of a sudden. So I'll listen to music to focus me, yeah. And I have a playlist on my phone, which is like a collection of songs, which is so funny because if they ever come on in a random playlist, I can feel like the natural reaction of these emotions coming out, because it's the same playlist that Bayona made me from The Impossible.
Wow.
It's the same 20 songs that I've used my entire career. Any one of them can get me going. I'll never tell anyone what they are. But yeah, so it's really helpful.
I always think there's a video about what people are working out to. You
Right,
see
right.
these big guys in the gyms, and it's always Mulans, I'll make a man out of
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
I use that song all the
do it.
time. Come on, it's inspiring. You mentioned one of your directors. I believe you had 4 on this series. And that's a whole art in and of itself, like collaborating with different directors on episodes. But you have worked with so many amazing directors. What is it you hope for as an actor when you show up to set from a director?
I think the biggest thing for me is a clear vision. I really love when a director's like, do this. I'm like, yes, I can totally do that. Do you mind if I try it a little bit like this? And one of my favorite things is like, no, do it my way, and then you can try it your way. And then I love the challenge of like, I'd love to convince you to do it my way. I love that, like, yeah, absolutely, I'll do as I'm told. I call all my directors boss. It's a big thing that I do. Everything's yes, boss, no, boss. But when I get that opportunity of like, no, do it my way, and then you can do it your way, I love it when they go, your way's better.
Oh, so satisfying.
I love that. So yes, for me, with a director is a real clear vision.
So after this epic, grueling shoot, I'm hoping you like went and did a nice rom-com in Hawaii or something.
I actually haven't done anything since.
Oh right, you had planned on taking time off, right?
I took some time off, and then we were all on strike. Doing the right thing. And so yeah, I'm unemployed. I have no work. So if anyone is doing anything.
Oh, don't even open that door.
Oh, please.
You're gonna regret that.
I am. So I'm a free agent. It's a really interesting time. I'm really excited. It feels very freeing, but also very scary, and I'm excited.
Well, again, it's such a beautiful performance. I want to invite everyone, if you exit out the back to the Boxwood restaurant, there'll be a reception. I want to thank you for being a great audience. Remind you that all episodes of this show are now on Apple TV+. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. I'll see you in the back.
Yay.
Thank you.